Greetings, Wilkinson here. Today my guest is Angela Landis, and I met this fabulous lady at the Bent Theater, and she was one of the actors in our last play. And then I started digging into her background a little bit, and like, whoa, you've been around the block, lady.
Busted.
Yeah. All right, let's first of all say hi to my peeps.
Hi, peeps.
Glad you could come in. Thank you for showing up.
Thanks for having me.
In the middle of my construction project here. Let's hear a little about you. Who are you?
Who am I? I am just a lady that was raised in rural Oregon originally, and then
Where in Oregon?
Gaston, Oregon, or as I like to say, Gaston, because it sounds much cooler. Yeah.
Where is that? I mean, I lived in Seattle forever, but I never heard of that.
It's about between like Portland and the ocean.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the way to Tillamook?
Tillamook, yeah.
Kind of out of the way, but...
Out of the way, but on the way, yeah.
Yeah, okay. You ever been to Rockaway?
I have been to Rockaway.
I love Rockaway.
Yeah, my grandparents had a beach house in Rockaway, and
They
so when we were...
keep it?
They did not keep it. Oh my God, right? I would be there right
like
now.
a mini fortune now, huh?
Yeah, but we would always stop at Tillamook on the way, so that was my favorite.
I love the storms there,
Yeah.
walking on the beach.
Yeah, you don't go to the beach in Oregon for the sunshine and the swimming. You go for the storms.
I was married with a couple kids at that time. It was a bad storm, but I would love storms on the ocean. So I took the ice bucket from the room, put it over my head, because I didn't have an umbrella, which wouldn't have done any good anyway. And I was walking the beach. I looked like an idiot, but I had fun. Anyway, all right. So you grew up there.
Yeah, I grew up there, and yeah, I learned quickly that I was not a small town girl, and pretty much right after I graduated, I sold the car my parents had given me, and I moved to downtown Portland, which, you know, was
big city.
crazy for them. And
What year was that?
it was 1990.
So had prices gone up there yet?
No, everything was...
We should have bought that.
I should have bought like 10 years ago,
I
but
know.
whatever.
Whatever. What'd you do in Portland?
I tried going to college at Portland State on and off. I couldn't really afford school, and so I would like work a term and then go to school a term. I ended up working as a teller at U.S. Bank, and like the next year I was promoted to like the CSR, and then I was promoted to, you know, head of whatever. And so I just kept getting promotions. And then at one point I ended up at a customer service call center, and then was starting to hire some of my friends as they were graduating. And so I was like, hi, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's kind of actually when I started acting too, was in Portland. This is a little tangent then. In high school,
We like tangents.
Okay, good, because I'll have a lot of them.
Okay.
I was a cheerleader, and the cheerleading catalog companies would come every year, you know, to sell us on their stuff. And they asked one year, like, if we wanted to be in the catalog, just submit our pictures and whatever. And so I was chosen to be in this cheerleading catalog. And then from there, I got an agent in Portland, and the agent then started sending me on other little like print ads or whatever. And I'm not really a model type. So acting sort of started from there. I would be sent out on commercial auditions, or there was a film that was in town once that was, I booked a little role in. And so that was so fun. And I started doing dinner theater, murder mystery, like dinner theater shows.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of parallel to my career at U.S. Bank.
Now, were you acting or writing or both?
Only acting at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't really realize it was even a career path for a little while until I took this one acting class. And the woman would basically hold these like maybe quarterly workshops where she would bring up people from LA, whether it was like a director or a casting director or an agent. And we would have these like really intense 3-day weekend workshops. So I got to meet a number of like LA people before I even moved to LA. And so it was a way to learn that like it was a career, it was a job, it was something I could actually pursue. And since, you know, the bank wasn't my dream by any means, it was just an accident.
The bank shouldn't be anywhere.
No.
I worked at Manufacturers and Traders Trust in New York, and it was not a good experience.
No. Though for a small town girl with, like, you know, it seemed like the only hopes that were for me were, you know, getting married and having kids. I think when I left, when I was 18, the gifts that I was given to leave home were a sewing machine and a typewriter. And so none of those were the things I really wanted to do. So acting, I think I flew towards it because it wasn't typical or expected of me.
What do you like about acting?
Gosh, there are so many things.
Besides meeting fabulous people like me, of course.
Exactly. I mean, that is the best part. I mean, one of the things is that you'll never get it 100% right. It's always an opinion, and you can always do more or better or different. I mean, one of my favorite things is like doing research for a role. I mean, you don't always get the chance. Usually they're like, you know, lady, and it's whatever. It's something you could easily
lady with umbrella.
Yeah.
Gets hit by car.
But when it's something like she's a medical student who got her training like in the military or whatever it is, and then you really get to like dive in and like look up just like what that path would look like. You can look up chat rooms and read people's experiences. When you can really imagine, you know, someone else's shoes so differently, that's so much more appealing than just, lady number 5 with the umbrella.
So you just finished the Lincoln debate in Palm Springs. Did you have fun doing that?
I did.
I had fun working with you.
It was, everything about that show was wonderful.
Are you happy with your work there?
I am. And for me, like, that one of the biggest, I mean, that was a good role to like dive into because there was a lot to look up about Mary Todd Lincoln. There was a lot to look up about the letters. So it was really fun to dive into that. And then that was the first time I've ever been in a play on stage for an hour and a half and never left the stage and never had a moment to, you know, look away.
Right.
I mean, even though Abraham and Joshua Speed have the bulk of the lines, you know, there was never too big of a break where you could,
where you were kind of the antagonist, so to speak.
Yeah, which was fun.
Well, I must say I didn't hate you in that role as much as I could have.
Oh,
I mean, you had a hateable character, but you were still lovable at the same time.
Yeah, that's what I got that a lot after the shows, and I could tell usually kind of after my first joke or two how the audience was kind of gonna go. Like, do they like me at all? Do they hate me? If they don't laugh at the first one or two, they definitely hate me.
You can't depend on the audiences. Some of the audiences can be a dud.
Yeah, but then in the end, when there's that long, sad, painful monologue,
right,
you know, and then you get to like, you know, show them something different, I think they really turn around and they're like, oh, I totally see. I see her journey. I see her pain. I see why. Yeah, she still might have done some dumb or terrible or rude things, but they were self-preservation. They weren't malicious.
Oh. So do you think Lincoln was gay or bi or what?
Based on the evidence, which, you know, is there is a lot of, but it's not enough to make it full.
I wish we had Speed's letters.
Right? Maybe Mary threw him away. Maybe Abraham threw him away.
Could have.
But I think he was bisexual. I mean, of that time too, it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
But I would say bi, because I don't think...
Well, he was with Mary, so...
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you sleep with a guy for 4 years and a little bit, come on.
Yeah, but by choice.
Do you have any other roles coming up in Palm Springs or elsewhere?
I have a role at the Bent again next year that I don't think they've made the announcement for, but I am excited about that.
Okay.
To work with the Bent again. And, you know, they had the big Desert Theater Alliance auditions last weekend.
Right.
So hopefully there'll still be some more callbacks coming. Yeah, I have a couple projects of my own that I'm working on. One of them is called Lady Macbeth, which is, it's a interesting take on basically the witches from Shakespeare's Macbeth. And it's being written by a friend of mine. And so we're really hoping that maybe we can get that off the ground. And ideally, it would be a Halloween show.
Are you talking Shakespearean?
There is some of that, but it's mostly about the making of the all-female version of Macbeth. So there's very little, which is good because it's not my strong suit.
That was the weird thing about the auditions was so many people did Shakespeare. And
Really?
There's not really that much Shakespeare around here, guys.
Was that mostly new people then? That didn't.
No, it wasn't. It was like pretty boring, a lot of it.
Yeah, there's no point in that.
And then, of course, the timing on the stage was a nightmare because they didn't tell everybody. They had 5 minutes from the second their foot stepped on that stage. And same people talking to the pianist for like 2.5 minutes out of their 5. And then arguing when their time's up.
Wow.
That one lady was really arguing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which didn't.
Oh, I think I heard about that.
I don't think she would get callbacks just for that.
Yeah, because she was also timing herself.
Yeah, she was timing herself, doing all that. And then my time's not out. Anyway,
auditions are hard.
So we've talked a little about your acting, but let's go back. You've done a lot of stuff. Tell us some of the stuff you've done, or tell my peeps.
Oh, well, in LA, there was so many TV film roles. The biggest and first was Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams, which was an incredible experience for many, many reasons. Sadly, after that, I think I did that, and I had a great guest star on ER, which was I don't know if you know what the sweeps are, the big ratings bonanza. Yeah. And George Clooney was back for that episode. So I had a couple really big jobs back to back, and I was like, oh, this is great. This, finally stuff is happening. And then that was my first experience with the strikes. And basically the strikes went on for so long. My agent went out of business. Everything just came to a complete stop. And I felt like it took me a long time to sort of get back on track and get a new agent and get all that. But gosh.
I saw one. You were with Matthew Perry in one clip, weren't you?
Yeah, that was a pilot, which would have been a fantastic job. It was called The End of Steve, and it was sort of like Groundhog's Day. Like every season, he was going to wake up and forget the last season.
Oh wow!
And I was played a hooker.
now that I can see.
Yeah. I think there's a number of hooker number 1 or prostitute number 3 on my IMDb credits. And there was one point when I was teaching acting to little kids and teens at a John Robert Powers modeling school in Valencia. And one of the little kids had looked me up one day and came into class, and he was like, hooker number 2 or whatever. Tell, how do you do that? And they were all just giggling so much. And I was like, oh no, how do I address this in a kid-friendly, fun way that won't get me fired? I was like, okay, we're all going to play hookers today, okay? You're a hooker, you're a pimp. I'm going to put you up here, and we're just all going to do the same lines. And you just have to be like, hey, baby, how much? And then be like, $20 or whatever. And
wait, how old were these kids?
These kids, they were so young. I don't think they had any idea. And it was
what they were doing.
Well, yeah, they, to them, I don't know. Kids these days probably know more than I do. But,
and you probably set some on a new career.
Maybe. Yeah, because they were literally 6 to 12, maybe.
And did you check in with them a few years later?
No, but I did get some letters from some of them later that
not their parents.
Not their parents.
Well, thank God.
No, though. I definitely have done some risky roles in my career that I guess definitely came back to haunt me in some way. That usually was funny, but one of them that was sad was when I first moved to LA. I felt like I was asking so many people for favors or whatever. I was like, I have to find a way to make sure I'm giving back of myself enough. And so I signed up for the Big Brother, Big Sister program. I don't know how much you know about the program, but basically anyone can apply for any reason and be accepted. But if they offer you a big sister or big brother and you turn them down, then you get booted, I guess. So I just feel bad. The family, it was a little girl. You do so many interviews, and she was being raised by her grandmother, and her grandmother, you have to tell them all about yourself. They do background checks. And so the grandmother knew that I was an actress and have done, prostitute roles or hooker roles. And none of them were, I can't say there was no nudity. That's a whole other story. But, they're in the big picture. I wasn't doing porn. But she also then was upset that I never graduated college. And so she decided I was not, my character was lacking and I would not be a good big sister for this little girl. So I was not really brokenhearted for myself, though definitely it stung. But how sad that this little girl then didn't get to have an opportunity.
Did you meet her, the girl?
I did meet her, yeah. And she was so sweet. And it would have been good. I ended up getting another... they still gave me another chance because it wasn't me that, did anything wrong. And then the other little girl, she was little at that time. She was like 10 and now she's like 25, I think. Yeah. And you're in the program until they graduate high school. And then they encourage you to always, stay in touch if you can. We probably lost touch a little bit during COVID. I've reached out to her a few times. I think she's living a good life. She's having fun. So I'm hoping that I hear from her again in a few years when she calms down a little bit.
Uh-oh.
And maybe she did learn some bad things from me. She said she didn't.
Are there any roles you took that you regret?
No, though. Okay, so this one.
Okay.
Maybe. And I don't regret it because it is some wonderful stories. One of them is the nudity, but the other was that it was for... the asylum, that was pumping out like a horror film like every few months or whatever. But in their early days, before Sharknado, before all that big money came in, they were so indie. We were filming in a condemned building.
Really?
And literally they had to lock up the bathrooms. So if we had to use the bathroom, we couldn't use it until it was cleared to be unlocked, which was a nightmare. Their food was questionable, but was
there running water in it?
There was not running water inside the building because, again, it was condemned. I don't know how they got permits. That's a whole other question. But there was homeless people living in there, and there was literally feces in the area where we were like in holding, and it was disgusting. But that is one of the nudity roles.
Really?
And you
weren't rolling around on the floor.
No, luckily that scene was in a totally different
that was in a different
same movie but different.
Oh, you did roll around and shit?
No.
In a movie? No.
Oh. That was chocolate sauce.
Okay.
No, but that, in the 90s, it was 90 something, I don't remember the year, and I don't know. The internet wasn't a thing, so I didn't really think no one would know about it if I didn't tell them. Right. And who's going to watch this indie film that might, I didn't know that it would really go anywhere at that time or what the company was even doing.
Yeah, just the world would watch. That's all.
Just the world would watch. But if, whatever. I was an alien nurse. I don't even remember, whatever. But so I was at two different family things. One was at my husband Mike's, and it was like, we tried to look up, I had a jewelry business at that time. We were looking up your jewelry website and we couldn't find it.
But
we found that it looks like you're acting. They were very tight-lipped about it. So that one was less embarrassed. That was more like, oh shit.
What did it see?
What? Oh my God, this is coming out. But then my family, who's a little more, I don't know, obnoxious, not as, shy or uptight about certain things, literally, and there was some family friends there, and everyone just started giggling, and it was so wait, how's acting going, Angie? And they were all making eyes at each other, they know what they're gonna ask, but I don't know what's coming.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh yeah, stuff has been good, and they were like, oh yeah, tell us, I looked you up on IMDb, it looks like you've been doing some whatever, and it just, everyone kept piling on, and it was finally will you tell us what alien abduction is about? And I was like, oh my God. And then I realized, I don't know if they sort of fessed up and told me, not only is the movie on IMDb and out there, but I realized that I was on a website called Mr. Skin.
Mr. Skin?
Yeah, it's I have a little bit in my stand-up about it too. Mr. Skin runs a website that will tell you what actresses take their clothes off and where you can find them naked, and like he rates them and all this stuff. And so he rated me an average girl with medium boobs. And so some of my friends will not let it was they just whatever. It's been a joke forever. And ultimately when I was doing stand-up, another reason why I don't regret it was because it's just
It gave you material, right?
It's good material. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
So were you a naked alien nurse?
Yeah, I was a naked alien nurse. Well, I wasn't naked, but when I got killed, then I was lying on the gurney in the operating room, and somebody has to rip my top off.
Why? So you could show boobs for the movie.
They could see boobs. It was gratuitous. Like, there's no reason. Yeah. And then there was
you green?
I think that the like markings that they had so that we were notably alien was these weird little circles on our forearms, because they didn't. The budget was low. I was gonna say low budget. Yeah. But yeah, someone saw my stand-up and recommended me for this documentary called The History of Skin in Hollywood, and so it was about people doing nudity and stuff. So I was like, oh. I got paid more to do a documentary than I ever got to take my top off.
Wow. Yikes. But you've done you've done acting, but you've also done producing and some directing. Is that correct?
Producing, directing, writing. I would say it started out a bit basically like as soon as I moved to LA, like I did get lucky kind of out of the gate, and I booked a couple bigger jobs, and then it got really quiet, and so I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'm not going to wait for the phone to ring. Like, I know that this is a business, and I have to keep making my own stuff. And so I think the first thing I did was I bought the rights to a play, and I produced a play, Pizza Man, which was such a fun show. And then I think
that was a play. You said
it was a play, and then
where did that occur?
I think I rented a theater called the Jewel Box Theater. I don't know if it's still there, but it was in Hollywood. There's like at least 100 small black box theaters that are available to rent. Yeah.
Oh. That's handy.
Yeah. So that was a great learning experience.
And you had a 4-year run on that. You said, right?
4 year. I think 4 weeks, which was probably too much for me to undertake on my first production, but it didn't go so terrible. I think it was like a year later, I got some people that were in my acting class, and we all wrote little sketches, and the title was 5 Funny Scenes, and then the one Angie wrote. And so we put up like a sketch show at a theater for a couple weekends, and then ultimately I didn't know what to do, and I had tried writing then, and so I wrote a short film called Criminal Acts about actors that were stealing the breakdowns, the secret casting information that goes out. So, which, it was so taboo, but you're like, we're just trying to get jobs. Like, that's all.
That's all.
But, it was, and I've heard of people getting in big trouble for it. So it's no longer a thing, luckily. But, so I wrote a short film about these 2 actresses that got caught doing it. And then they were sentenced to a life of craft service. Which is
what?
Craft services, which is like basically the snack and beverage table on a set. So they're like right there on set, but they can never act. They can only hand somebody peanuts and a soda. Yeah.
Well, some of the bigger studios can get really tricky on stuff, can't they? Because I had a guy on my podcast. He was the Airbnb guest, and he ended up on my podcast. He's from Mexico City, and he's on like sitcoms and stuff there. But he was on this, I don't know if it's an Amazon series or a movie, because the guy has a lot of ink on him, right? And he told me he couldn't have a photograph taken with his shirt off. If he did before they released it, guess how much the penalty was written in his contract?
Oh my God, how much?
$500,000.
What?
Penalty if he showed his ink. Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty wild.
That's crazy. I know they're very weird about tattoos anyway, just because of copyright or something,
right.
Which is weird because if it's if you did your own art and then had a tattoo artist
You have the right.
draw it on you.
Yeah.
You don't have the rights to that, which is weird.
You're saying you don't?
I mean, there's debates, I guess, on what it is. So they basically just will cover up your tattoos.
Well, then I guess the person doing the tattoo created the art, technically, if your, illustration.
Yeah, and you could probably get like some, release from any time you got new ink. I probably should do that for some of mine. It's so weird on set what a big deal they make of it. Like, she has a tattoo! Hey, come here! Did you know she has a tattoo? Look at this tattoo! And you're like, oh God. And then
really?
there's more on my feet. Do you need to cover those too? They're not really in the scene.
Well, not to mention your butt, but you're not taking your pants
not
off,
anymore.
So you're good.
They stopped asking.
So which aspect do you like the best of all those things?
I definitely acting. I feel like anything I made, whether I wrote or directed or whatever, I did it so that I could perform or create. So I guess writing is also fun. It's just I didn't do it just to write. Though it landed, making shorts or films or web series. I now have a day job that is I make videos for a nonprofit.
You do?
Mm-hmm. I do their social media and I do videos, and the videos, is my favorite part of the job.
What are they about?
They sometimes are, dry tutorial content, but sometimes, like I've written a short film for them about grandfather with Alzheimer's who goes missing because wandering is such a big thing in the dementia world.
I could play that part.
I always need people. We have a bilingual telenovela, which is one of the other projects that is super exciting. We just actually wrapped filming season 3 of that. That's a grant-funded project. So what's really nice is at a nonprofit, most of the funds for these do come from grants. So it's more money than I ever would have been able to.
Did you write the grants?
No, I'm not a grant writer.
No. There's
There's a whole team for that.
Oh, you called that a what? Novella?
A telenovela, yeah.
What does that mean?
It's basically Latino soap opera, I guess.
Because I guess that's what the Mexican guy was in, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're definitely juicy and, dramatic. I mean, ours is a pretty mild novella, I guess, but because it's about a family who, they start to see that their grandmother is forgetting things or like doing weird things, calling people by the wrong names. And so it goes through her progression of getting an actual diagnosis and how the family handles it. And the stigmas with, there's different stigmas about it in every culture. There's definitely...
So in the Latino culture, is that a problem?
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah. That kind of happens when people also in the cultures that really take care of their elders, they don't take them to the doctor. They're just determined to help them on their own. Instead of actually getting a more
real
diagnosis. Yeah. Where, you can potentially slow the disease or, have more help available, plan better for when it goes more into the more challenging areas.
No, you're straight.
I am straight.
Why'd you move to Palm Springs then?
Curious.
Oh, so you're straight curious.
No, I'm straight. But Palm Springs, it was house prices. I was
Well, you couldn't have bought recently then.
2 years ago. I probably still bought too late, but
you're comparing to LA. Right?
Yeah, I basically thought I would cash in on the madness, and I sold a condo, and I was like, yeah, I just made my down payment for a house. And then I didn't realize the house prices were like, every day you looked, it was like 10 grand more. And so when I was looking further and further out, like it went from Van Nuys to like Fontana to, Beaumont or whatever. And I was like, well, if I'm not going to live in LA, then I'm going to live in a nicer house. Yeah. And Palm Springs is nice. It's beautiful. It was affordable, ish 2 years ago. So
affordable ish.
Yeah, that's how it happened.
Putting it.
Though with the pool, I was like, oh, I didn't really realize how much that would be.
And it's expensive to maintain.
Yeah.
That's what's killing me. It's like, ugh.
Yeah. Even the monthly fee, you're like, that's fine. But there's always like a filter or a pump.
Yeah, I just did that. They did a tweak and a filter. Oh, $850.
Yeah. And then with all the dust and the wind.
I don't even use my pool. The hot tub I would miss. I like the hot tub, but the pool, it looks pretty.
Yeah. In the summer, I use it. Like today, I plan to go in it after this.
Naked.
Well, it depends because though it's pretty private in our backyard, the neighbors kind of can see, and there's some little kids, so I don't want to have some sort of like fine that says I have to introduce myself as a
You've been in enough trouble in your life without that, or is that what you're saying? And you got, how many times have you been arrested, did you say?
The only time that was close, I got out of it.
Did you?
Yeah.
I won't ask.
Good idea.
What?
No, it was something so harmless, and I was a kid, and it was basically we broke in somewhere, and we're just so embarrassing. We were dirty dancing, so it was so dumb, and making out and whatever you do when you're 17. But he was some fancy pants kid from some fancy family and had some military career in his future or whatever. I don't know what he was doing, but like he basically bawled his eyes out until the cops let us go.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Good thing.
Yep.
So what are you involved in right now? Now you're a painter too.
I'm in the middle of a painting. Actually, I thought I was done, but now that I've put it up, like to assess it, see if it's really done. I'm like, it's not done. But yeah, I'm basically at the point where I'm starting to store the paintings. So I don't know. Do I pursue selling them? Do I just start giving them away? Do I paint over them? What do I do? I've had a few friends ask for paintings, and so I've gifted them. I think I had one commission where it was like, we want this painting, how much? But I don't know what to do. Seems like a whole lot of work. Is there an easy way to do it?
Don't ask me. I've done photography 25 years and I've never made any money.
So I should quit.
Well, do what you love because you love it.
Acting.
Yep, there you go. So do you love being in Palm Springs?
I like it. I like the heat. That doesn't bother me so much.
What do you miss about LA?
Oh, the diversity in all things.
Really?
Yeah. And there's just more of a creative energy there than here. Though I feel like I'm finding it here, so that's helped.
Yeah. There's a lot of people moving from LA to here.
Yeah, I mean, it's close enough that you're still, local. It has perks. The traffic is way better out here, of course.
Well, except when all of the snowbirds come.
Yeah, except when the snowbirds.
Then you're like, get out of the finish lane. You're only going 20.
Yeah. Or if you're trying to go down Ramon and there's construction like every 4 blocks.
Good thing we don't live in Chicago, though.
I
had a house guest. He said, did you know? He said Chicago has 2 seasons, winter and construction. But anyway, we're off topic. Okay. So at this point in the podcast, as we're nearing the end, I asked somebody in that seat, what have you learned in your life? What are some lessons and what do you live by?
I think the 2 that come to mind, well, one is that, it's your life. You get to curate it. You get to take action. I mean, sure, you have circumstances and things happen to you, but you can still control quite a lot of it. And so, if I wanted to be an astronaut, sure, I might not ever fly to the moon, but I could certainly find ways to be involved in that world or learn about that world. And, I probably wouldn't ever be an astronaut at this point. But, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you're the only one that can tell yourself no to something. So I try not to. I try to say yes to myself.
That's a good lesson. I learned that a few years ago. I've done energy work with a guy here, and I remember probably 3 years into it, one day I just said, I'm going to start saying yes. I've said no too many times, out of fear or whatever.
Yeah.
Even starting the podcast at my age, like I didn't know any of this stuff. How do you do it?
Yeah, you have to learn it. No one's like, there's no escaping that. Even if you would have started at 10, you still would have to learn it. Yeah. So say yes to yourself. The other one, I don't know if I told you, my father was raised in Pennsylvania, Amish country. He was Amish. His family was Amish. But he basically they get that 1 year, it's called Rumspringer, where they leave the community and then they get to decide if they stay gone or they come back to the community. And he moved to Oregon and met my mom. So he didn't stay in the community, but his education level, I believe, was like 5th or 6th grade in one of those one-room schoolhouses. So he wasn't, like, to me, he was super smart and he could do anything, but he didn't have a typical education. But one of the things that he would always tell me when I was a kid was that they would all do their work on a chalkboard. So they didn't have, pen and paper. I'm sure that it was around. They didn't have it. Being in the Amish community, they were probably like, 20, 30 years behind what normal kids probably were at. But he said that there was a math problem, that all the kids did this problem, and he stepped back. He was the first one done. He looked at it. He decided he was right. As all the other kids kept stepping back, they all got a different and same answer. So he was the only one with this unique answer. Everyone else got a different answer. And the teacher came over to him and was like, Elmer, are you happy with your answer? Do you want to rework this? What do you think? And he said he took a minute. He looked at it again. He said, nope, I'm confident in my answer. And sure enough, he was right.
He was the only right one.
He was the only right one. And even if he hadn't been, to me, that lesson is that you do it for yourself, and your answer is right for you. And hopefully, it is
right.
In fact the right answer, but somebody else telling you to do something differently or making you second guess your choice or your process,
right.
It doesn't do anything.
So did you grow up in a religious home then, or because of that, or not?
Yeah, he definitely was not quite as religious. I think, he had probably experienced enough, and I honestly would have no idea. He passed when I was 18, so I don't know if he still believed it all or if, whatever. My mom was raised Baptist, and so we did go to church quite often as kids, probably through like middle school time. Yeah, I remember going to like church camps in the summer and stuff, and I don't know. I definitely was.
Was it Vacation Bible School?
I wish it would have been.
That's what they called it when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know where religion faded away from me, but it did, and it's not really a part of my life anymore. And it's especially in the world right now that so many of the bad things that are happening are due to religious reasons. Yeah. The nobody's God could be right then.
Any final thoughts?
No. Wait, are you a top or a bottom?
Oh, shh. You can't ask that.
Oh, you didn't tell me I couldn't ask a question.
Excuse me, but I never ask you that.
All right, you're off the hook.
I don't know.
I did that on purpose.
I may leave that in there, may not. You're a little smart ass. Wow. All right. It's been fun.
It's been fun, Wilkinson.
Thanks for coming in.
Of course.
Bye.
Bye.